I'm Paul.
I'm Todd. Game on.
We're kind of nailing that intro now, that goes smooth and everything.
Perfect.
We
Well,
are.
game on. I've been doing so much gaming events, Paul. I haven't been playing many games, but I'm coming off of a 2-week gauntlet of gaming events.
Are these like the big ones? Are these smaller ones? What are the events? What are you up to?
Small, medium, and large.
Okay.
So in the past couple weeks, we did a creator summit, which was 500 live streamers and content creators all around gaming. And that was a great event. I'll give you the full list. Then we did an esports summit, which was professional teams and college teams and game developers also. Then, not our event, but we activated at DreamHack, and DreamHack was 50,000 gamers, Paul.
Oh my God.
In the Georgia World Congress Center. Giant competition to small indie developers. Then we did a gaming event at the Chick-fil-A College Football Hall of Fame, a few hundred people. And then the biggest of all, an event called MomoCon. Momo, I think, is peach in Japanese.
Okay.
So it's anime, gaming, cosplay, costuming. And that was, I think the final number came in at 67,000 unique people. If you count it turnstile, like if I go 2 days, it was over 150,000,
Oh my God.
just humans over the course of Memorial Day weekend. So, whew, I'm like.
So when you're at the event, like when you guys are there, so there was a pretty wide range. You had the content creators, small event, 500 people. Then it goes all the way up to MomoCon, and that's 67,000 people. How do you and your crew participate at these different ones? What do you do? Like, what do you actually do?
Yeah, well, everyone is different because the three brands that we have, the three legs of the stool. One of them is an event company, Skillshot, behind the scenes event organizing and live streaming. Like, you don't always see us, but we're making the event happen. Ghost is the gaming organization, like very much in front of the camera and famous game players. And then Ghost Launchpad are game developers making games and publishing through Ghost. So at every event we tended to be doing like 2 out of 3 of the companies we're activating. So for some of them, they were Skillshot events, and we were actually doing the hosting, the ticketing, the promotion. It was in our venue. For the couple hundred, 500 one, we were the event host, and it was presented by Skillshot. At just about all of them, Ghost had some presence, and those were our famous gamers making an appearance, sometimes doing a meet and greet with fans, sometimes doing like a live stream from the floor of the event. We had 11 of our creators all playing games and live streaming from DreamHack. So they were in the physical world and live streaming. And then we were also, of course, showing off some of our new games from the game developer side. And of course, I have to say one of my favorite things was a small pop-up where one of our influencers, I may have mentioned her on the show before, Tactical Grandma is her gamer name. She's 60-year-old grandma.
Okay.
She's cracked, which means very good, at the game Call of Duty. You wouldn't expect a grandma. You might think grandma's playing Candy Crush. No, this grandma owning face in Call of Duty.
Oh.
And so she's pretty famous on the internet. But we had her visit a middle school, kind of an under-resourced middle school where I know the teacher and he has an esports club, and the fifth graders are adorable. And the fifth graders did a podcast with grandma where they asked her questions and she inspired them around their content to keep doing podcasts and keep learning technology. And then one of our sponsors was this really cool new gaming console called Nex. They haven't
Okay.
heard us yet, but NEX.
Okay.
You remember the Kinect on the Xbox that were
Sure.
so that technology has been repackaged in a tiny, it's about this big, tiny little device. You connect it to your television, and it's very family friendly. So the games are all appropriate for kids. So Tactical Grandma plays this at home with her grandkid, and there's no online play right now, but your body is the controller, so it gets you moving. And so
Wow.
we did an activation with the school, and then we gave the classroom one of these NEXs to keep so they would have it. It's still early, but the next console sold more than the Xbox this recent Christmas. So it's like quietly building up some momentum because
Wow.
it's very different, like what's new in gaming. Well, this is like a new experience. Doesn't have the best graphics, but it just like it works, and your body's the controller, and it's very family friendly.
What, so the games themselves are loaded into the device?
That's
And
right.
that's so that the security and the privacy are built right in.
That's right. You don't have to. You get like an annual pass, and it's basically all you can eat form of games,
right. Xbox
and you just
style.
download them like that. Yep, yeah. And it's just all self-contained, and it's a pretty cool little device. So we also discovered that along the way. So anyway, that was our gaming events.
So when you're talking, what is tactical? Does Tactical Grandma make a living doing this, or is she? Yeah, so she is a professional gamer.
She does. Yeah, she does. She's managed a bit by us at Ghost Gaming, and then also her husband, who does have another job outside of gaming, but he also spends time on her careers. And so, when you're a gaming influencer, many do it just out of passion and fun, and some do it for a little extra income, and some it's their full-time job. To give you an example, because again, as you know, every game has their own community, and they have influencers that are more relevant. You've got your folks that are relevant in Diablo, maybe not so relevant in other games. So when Call of Duty did a big cooperation actually with Netflix and Squid Games, there was like a mashup, and they invited a lot of the most famous Call of Duty streamers in New York to compete in like a real world Squid Games without the killing of the people,
right?
But all of the games, and so she played. She actually did pretty well. She's quite athletic outside of the game world as well. So she did pretty well. So things like that are activation, kind of appearance opportunities for content creators.
Well, actually, that goes to a really, for me anyway, and from the B2B side, I think almost a really interesting question. So when I'm watching, the Diablo 4 Tactical Grandma's equivalents, although they typically are more like Tactical Grandson, right, in terms of age. But what I've noticed is that Blizzard in particular is hosting them for a lot of things all the time. And it's basically, advanced looks at the game. And part of it is because they feel, I know that to make them feel really cool about getting advanced looks at the game, but these guys become like playtesters, like public playtesters. They're saying, okay, I got wind of, here's what's going on. I'm going to show you guys in the community what I'm doing, but they're also playing the game, right? And they're giving tons of feedback back for free. And obviously it's feedback that's not only gleaned from their playing the game, but some of the community who's watching them play the game. I'm not one of these people, but some of the community who are watching them play the game are giving them feedback on what they're seeing. Oh, I wish Blizzard would. right? And then the net result is after a while, and I know in Diablo, they halfway, you typically, although I don't think I think it's coming next week. In fact, for the next season, they do a playtesting review. And if you have the battle.net version, I have both, Steam and Battle. I bought Battle.net originally, but for the purposes, it doesn't really directly, they won't let you carry it into Steam. Blizzard, I would think, making enough damn money to not do that, to allow you to do that. But you have to buy a separate instance, even though you still have to connect to Battle.net to do it. So I bought that just because it's so much more convenient to use Steam than it is Battle.net. But in any case, you start seeing these videos as the PTR is heading to season 14 and so on and so forth that say, here are 10 things they're going to need to do for next season. And keep in mind, the current season of Diablo 4, which is season 13, which is new DLC, the Lord of Hatred, is wildly successful because it's a lot brand new end game, brand new crafting. I mean, it's really brand new old crafting. It's Horadrim cubes, which were in early Diablos, but much more sophisticated version. Of course, the graphics are miles ahead of any other ones they've ever had, and the opportunities are interesting, and they've gotten smart on tweaking the mythic drop rates and things like that. So they've got this all right. But at the same time, I see one of these influencers have been saying, "Love it, but here are 10 things that they need to be considering for season 14," and that comes from giving those influencers just giving them access to the game early, really, and then everything extends from there. So that's a long-winded question, but the question is, obviously these are important people to the gaming community, Tactical Grandma being one, Call of Duty, right? All these ones I know from Diablo, etc. When you are sitting down and thinking about this, about, okay, this influencer, what are your criteria for engagement for those influencers?
Yeah, there's so much in there. I mean, number one, you're right that for games, and I think there is a lesson for B2B here. We've talked about user-generated content and community building, and so whenever you have some humans that are not you, that work for the company, so engaged with your product that they're out there being an ambassador and making a living on it, or at least, following their passion because they're making how-to videos, or they're live streaming the game, or they're making blogs with theory crafting over builds. I mean, this is how community is built. And for online games, the health of the game is the health of the community, is the health of the game. Like, it's this feedback loop. And then when it comes to influencers, they, of course, have this megaphone, and more every day. You're not maybe watching them as much, but I'm sure many people are. And it helps new people discover that the game exists. And even more, it helps keep current players attached because it's another way they get to engage with the fandom and the universe. So when we are looking at them, you could kind of say, how do we look at it from a ghost perspective? Like the sign, like, hey, Paul has started streaming. Paul wants to be signed to Ghost and be in the Ghost family. What do we look for? And there's a few things. I mean, it is really the engagement of your community, right? And there's different ways we could look at, because your platform might be, you might have a Discord server of your own, or you might just post constantly on X or TikTok or Twitch. And so by platform, we do want to look at, like, even if your community is not giant, it's engaged, right? Like they're actively interested in what you're putting out. And sometimes that's very different than your follower count, which honestly doesn't matter as much as it used to because of the way the algorithms work. And someone might have just bought followers or whatever. So we look at the engagement of the community. And then we also look at the the culture fit and like just the interest match between what we're investing in, because we can't be in every game. And so we have to also pick and choose. You might be huge in a game, but that game is not strategic for us because the audience is just too different. Gamers are not all the same. They're very different, just like sports audiences aren't all the same. So, we are focused as a brand on a North American audience, for example. So you might play a game that's super popular in Brazil, and that's great. You might have an engaged community, but that doesn't fit our audience match just in terms of North America. And then in terms of genre, also, we in every org, we're looking at what are genres and game titles that are more likely to be around 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now versus what's just like a flash in the pan and is going to go away. So these are some of the things that we think about.
Well, so from that standpoint, it's interesting because, so obviously I've been an industry analyst on CRM, CX, et cetera, for years. So I'm very well acquainted with the analyst relations teams at vendors. In fact, PPN has a show, Talking Headless with Shashi Bellamkonda, who's also an analyst, that it's actually on Wednesday, every other Wednesday at noon Eastern time, and it'll be on tomorrow. But what's interesting is he talks to a lot of the analyst relations people. And the thing I've learned with them is how they deal with us. And the tendency, which I don't really like so much, I actually kind of like your approach, although it raises a question, which I'll get to in a minute. But the way they operate on the analyst relations side, if you're an old school kind of big vendor and you're not taking into account, for example, independent analysts or boutique firm analysts, you're only looking at the big analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester and IDC, you tend to use what a lot of them do, which is they have a tiered system, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, typically. It's typically 3, but could be anything. Tier 1 analysts, you engage them, you pay them for do paid engagements with them. Tier 2 are people that you talk to once or twice a month. You make sure they're on every list. You invite them to your conferences potentially, take care of their expenses, etc. And that's, of course, tier 1. You always do that. Tier 3 are people who just kind of receive your emails with information and so on and so forth. The problem I find, and I'm not saying that exists on your end, but the problem I find, which goes to the question, is it's not very fluid. And the thing is that if you're a tier 3 analyst in some community, no one's really spending the time to think, oh, well, wow, I just noticed he's doing this, and this, and it's led to this, and this, and he's impacting that, and that. And he really should be tier 2 or tier 1 now. They just kind of leave it where it is. And it's actually kind of annoying if you actually know the system, right? Because they're basically, a tier 3 analyst is basically saying, well, you know what? We need to send it to you because we need to send it to you, not because we really have any actual deep interest in you. How do you deal on the influencer side with all the things you're considering and just discussed? How do you deal with the fluidity of those kind of situations?
Yeah, that's a good point. So there's kind of two lenses to look at it from. So if you think about it from a game developer's point of view, like Activision Blizzard or like our Ghost Launchpad property, where, a company's actually publishing a game, that tends to work a lot like you described, where there's different tiers and one tier just gets updates. One tier gets free virtual items in the game every once in a while, which is the equivalent of money or compensation, but it doesn't really cost the developer anything, just the opportunity cost. And then the most valuable tier would get money, would get appearance fees and special things like that. And so what's different when you're a game developer, though, is you have access to things like I might give you a creator code and say, Paul, anytime someone buys something in the game and uses code Paul, you're going to get credit, and they have that database. And so it can be pretty fluid to get you promoted or demoted as a tier based on aligned incentives because they have that. So that's a super fluid way for people to kind of go up and down the tier. What's also interesting from a Go standpoint, if you look at us not developing a game, but managing 100 influencers, the tiers are fluid because it depends on the brand we're working with and where the interest is. Let's say we're working with a car brand. We might have some ginormous influencers, but they're not authentically into cars, right? And we're not going to make that match, even if they've got millions of engaged followers. If we're working with a food brand, that's something else, or a fashion brand. So when you're in that world of kind of matchmaking content creators against a brand, it starts with authentically being into the category and also the product, or it's going to fall flat. And that means someone that might be like a lower tier creator in one genre is suddenly super interesting for another brand because their community is not that big, but they're engaged, and the content is going to seem consistent with that creator's voice because they talk about cooking all the time. And instead of just streaming games, they do a cooking stream every other day, right? And then the content's going to land a lot better and it's going to perform better for that brand partner. So
yeah, it's interesting. There's that sort of I'll call it the bleed over effect. There's this guy, I'm blocking his name now, but he's a teacher. Tom, he'll come to me. Anyway, he's been big in the audio and video equipment world, as an influencer, but more on the consumer side, or at least prosumer side. Tom, he likes to pun a lot. Puns are terrible, but he's a really good guy. And Tom Buck, that's his name, Tom Buck. So anyway, he would talk like the ATEM Mini Pro Extreme ISO video switcher. You talk about the Rode Podcaster 2, whatever, or Rode, Rode, various things like that, and he gained quite a following. So about a little less than a year ago, he bought I guess he'd been doing 3D printing on his own for a while, but he bought a 3D printer, and it was the P2S, which happens to be the one I own. So he started posting videos on 3D printing. And the interesting thing to me was my response to it, honestly, which was I assumed his authority immediately, just because I had trusted him on the other stuff. And I just assumed it, and it was of interest to me. So I'd watch what he said about the P2S and the various Bamboo Lab, equipment, but I assumed him as a trusted authority instantly. So that bleed over effect worked as well as it's going to work. And it sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is essentially, as you said, gamer, but may do a cooking show, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing, which is you trust their authority, not because of the subject you're actually that you trusted them to begin with on, but to the subject they happen to be talking about or doing at that time afterwards, because of the subject that you first got involved with.
Yeah. If you can transfer that trust and that authority, that is powerful, that earned trust. And some of it, we're humans, and some of it is just the way we develop these parasocial relationships. If I am seeing you show up, Paul, in my feed constantly, and especially if I see you live streaming, that's also why gaming works, because there's nothing quite like live streaming because of if you just think about the impressions per minute, if I'm watching you for an hour or 2 or 3 live streaming, it's just a lot of impressions and memory psychologically forming. And also it really, it enhances trust, because with a video, especially these days with AI, you just don't know. But if you are live and we're having this shared experience where I can chat, it really develops trust. And that's why live streaming, whether it's gaming or other areas, allows people to transfer that trust, just like you're saying, to other categories.
Well, it's fascinating actually, and gaming really plays it kind of in a unique way. And again, just from experience, when I was first getting involved in all the AV equipment side, as we were founding PPN, and Brent and I were kind of kicking the up CRM players a couple of notches, I began doing a ton of research in what's the equipment out there that I can stream with, right? And I didn't know much about cameras or anything at that time, but the webcams, there were all kinds of interesting things. I didn't love the quality of the stuff I had, so I'm looking into it. And one of the first guys I got involved with in terms of understanding was this guy whose name is Epos Vox. Now, Epos Vox, and then I ran across this sort of network of people kind of like him who were teaching me a bit of, and these are young, they're 30s maybe, but they were teaching me more and more about, basic, some of the, let's call it the USB-C level of connected equipment as opposed to XLR and all of those things. But they were teaching me about kind of the I'll call it the low to mid-range kind of stuff. And then I found out almost universally from this group of maybe 10, there's one, his name is Harris something. He's a super handsome guy with kind of silvery gold hair. Harris, and he's got a big following. All of them, I mean, this whole group of people were Twitch streamers on game, and they were all gamers. Every last one of them. I did not know that. I didn't know they were gamers. Then they started talking about their Twitch channels, so I looked at them, and they were all, every one of them, of course, because that's pretty much what Twitch is being used for, were gamers who were streaming, and they got interested in the equipment, and they spent the time to understand it better, and then they began broadcasting on that. But those were the first people I literally started believing, I guess, when it came to it. They were all gamers, and I mean literally every last one that I
believe
followed.
it. I believe it. You slight aside, we know Twitch now. Twitch actually started as just in TV. It started as technology for live streaming your life, and it was IRL stream anything tech. It just happened that the category that took off very early was people watching other people play video games. So they pivoted and changed the name to Twitch. What is interesting is, I would say, while gaming is still the biggest category on Twitch, every year the more diverse non-gaming categories grow. So if you look at the just chatting category, which would be like us doing this, or just exactly like it says, just chatting, or being out IRL streaming, where you have a mobile unit and you're showing up at a convention like we talked about and giving that behind the scenes view. That's a very quick growing category. So yeah, gaming did it early, but it's applicable to all sorts of industries and still really under leveraged. As you know, it's so relatively cost efficient to have global distribution, really for free, other than the little cost of your equipment and your time.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the areas, to your exact point, in B2B, they're talk about underutilizing an opportunity. Boy, they are insanely poor at doing exactly what we're talking about. And so, for example, one guy I know at Oracle, his name is Jeff Wortko, who's the VP of customers, like a lot of their customer service CX applications and strategy. He's a very funny guy. He's got a great sense of humor, really smart. He'll do those kind of things. He gets it. He'll use live streams. He'll use video a lot. He'll try to do, in fact, and this guy who's no longer at Oracle, named Steve Fioretti, once did a episode with me and Brent that Oracle sanctioned, which was two older white guys rapping with a rap battle, and it was absolutely horrible. And my entire Brent was the DJ, because Brent's a DJ, right? And he mercy killed it at a certain point. And it was my entire contribution to that was laughing hysterically the whole time. That's literally all I'm doing in there. I'm just laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so bad, right? So, and Oracle was okay with that. And it was like one of the few times, well, Oracle has this, she's actually a PR person, but she's taken over independent AR. Her name is Kim Guillen, right? Guillon. She's immensely creative. And she came up with the idea. And then she convinced Oracle to do it. And they even sent a team of um, their own AV team over to record it, as well as us doing it. And when I said, "You sure you want us to go ahead with it?" they said, "Sure, you can put it up." And it was unbelievable. But that's what I mean. But you know what? That was a fantastic opportunity. Oracle took care, humanized tons of people. It was funny. You could see they were, let's call it, surprisingly unashamed of it. And it just kind of went the way it was supposed to go. Right. But B2B is so stuck in their processes that and their governance and rules, the way they're set up, not because you can't do it. It's just the way they interpret it, I should say.
Right.
That they don't breathe or budge when it comes to that.
This is a good transition to our guest.
Yes,
I think
a
fellow B2B gamer, transcoder ring or something,
and author. And let's shall we run over to the Studio B and get ready?
This guest definitely deserves upgraded Studio B.
All right. We'll introduce him when we get over there.
Okay.
All right. See you in a second. Well, I'm telling you, our time between getting from studio to studio is astoundingly fast.
Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
But, the AC is much better in this studio.
Well, I had to actually catch a train at the tail end of it in order to make it in time because I hurt my foot on the way over.
Got it. All right. Well, well done. Good to see you here.
Thank you. So this guest is a mutual friend of ours. And Brent, I think, kind of has the best nickname for him. He calls him the Golden Smog. Right. Well, he's a voiceover guy. He's been called the Midas of Martech because he is an incredibly, and I mean incredibly astute investor. He is knowledgeable as any analyst or influencer I've known ever, at least on the technology side of the world. He's a gamer. He's also a connector. He's a kind person.
I think he's responsible for us.
Yes.
Meeting one.
I met you because he said I should meet you. And that's how. And
he's an excellent judge of character. Yes. We know that.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's one of my good moments in life is meeting you, sir. And thank you to our guest we're going to be talking about his book, which is we'll get to it when we bring him in, but let's bring on our buddy, Anand Thaker.
Hey, Studio B. I appreciate being upgraded. Can you guys hear me okay?
You're
sound
fine.
Like Golden Smog.
If Paul probably could tell you that I typically end up always reconfiguring wherever I am because I'm always half finished. So I needed to double check. But it's wonderful to see you both. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what you guys were saying beforehand, it was easy to, quite frankly, put you guys together without doubt. It was... I was already kind of in the mindset of thinking about how B2B and gaming could play a role together. And, you've had separate conversations. And then I realized, oh, wait. And then I've known Paul for a while now, and I didn't realize he was a gamer until we started having those conversations. So it made sense. And I'm glad it's yielding some wonderful results. And
oh, my God.
We love to talk about this stuff
business. Yeah.
Once a month, and excited to have you on today. Bring it.
Yeah. So you're now, and I mean, you're all the things that we said you are, but you're now an author too. And you wrote a book, and I'm going to read the full title because I don't have literally, I don't have the brain cells to memorize the whole thing. Here's the title of the book incompletely. Here we go. Multiplayer mode. And that part I remember. Here's the subtitle. Achieve market dominance and accelerate customer growth by adapting engagement strategies from the $500 billion gaming industry. Now, that is a handful of a title, but here's the thing. First, before we get to, I have a really, really critical question I do need to ask you about the book because there's one very distinct thing you do in there that I think everyone needs to hear. But can you tell people how you even decide to write a book?
I mean,
Why?
the reason was I started to realize and have conversations. So, of all the titles I have, my role has been lately working with conglomerates, private equity, venture, like all the investment firms, even hedge funds. And one of the, I guess, the advantages that I've had, or the unique perspectives I've had, happens to be the same things that gaming happens to be working on, like happens to be doing currently today. And the beautiful thing is that gaming's become more mainstream. I actually went to Todd's conference and event and learned so much more about how mainstream it truly is and how relevant it is to our lifestyle, to our health, to our wellness, to our connectivity. So knowing that and hearing the same kind of, oh, this was such a big new slice of bread, awesome innovation since slice of bread, but gaming having done it for a while, you realize that that was the message and sort of the common thread of where I have found success in identifying companies or identifying key leaders at at organizations, how to invest in them, when the timing of that investment need to be made, and understand when to even get out or just to say no. I mean, I think probably I've accrued over the time of my doing this kind of investing or helping other people's invest more of other people's money has been $12 billion in returns. And a lot of it has to do with understanding how a company is transforming or constantly engaging with companies. So the long title, along with my long blurb here, happens to try to differentiate it from just being a gaming book. This is actually a business book, and it talks a lot about how the future of business is going to operate. And so it had to be put down on paper somewhere, and Paul helped me manifest it into what it has become today, and I'm very, very grateful.
Which we are proud to say is the first published title from PPN Publishing too, which we're excited about. And
this is amazing. Well, I have to say, I love the title, but when I do my blurb via a short clip on TikTok, I think I'm just going to lead with gaming returned me $12 billion. I think that headline, you're gonna get some interest there. That's fairly impressive.
So, and that kind of goes to the heart of it too, which is one thing you do that no other book, including what was her name, Jane McGonigal, and all the other people who've written on gaming have, and even when the segments I wrote in Commonwealth Self-Interest, one thing you do is you go to the idea of value, hardcore idea of value. And when I say hardcore, I mean it's very succinctly defined. The way to go about producing the value is clear. Can you delve into that? Because I think that is the central concept that people need to hear coming out of the book.
Yeah, I think value, even in the investment world, value is created by a little bit of patience, a little bit of discipline, and a little bit of faith, right? I mean, and you really do. I mean, knowledge certainly plays a part in all of that, but truly understanding the asset today. The asset today is the customer, the community, and those are things that, obviously gaming has played a role in for many years, and now is starting to catch up. And so understanding how to find companies with value or, opportunities within an organization to create that kind of value. It's been one of those words that's still sustained over time of all the buzzwords that are out there, especially in marketing or go-to-market or sales or investing. But value still seems to hold its ground, and something that requires a great deal of investment or commitment and needs to be seen through. Now, it's not that you need to wait years or decades for something to bear fruit, but at the same time, it's not a one fly-by-night type of opportunity, not a one fly-by-night type of investment to be made. There is some curated, thoughtful, meaningful effort put into it, and then an action or series of actions are being made. And so I think, and if anybody's in the investment world, I mean, he follows Warren Buffett, the guy's not flashy. The guy's not, he's not really self-centered. I mean, he's gotten a little more charismatic over the years. But, value investing has been the cornerstone of everything he's been doing. And it's just been very patient, very thoughtful, meaningful moves, building the right relationships, and understanding the right kind of data or information to make.
I think that's very healthy. It definitely matches my own personal compass on how I try to build companies and, try to manage our own investments as a company or personally. And then at the same time, like, I also think it's timely for particularly young people to hear that, because what is interesting is that we're living at a time when some of the aspects of gaming, in my view, not the value creation, not the focus on customer, not community, but almost the bad part of gamification, which is like the dopamine reward drops and, the tricks of gaming have sometimes been applied to prediction markets, gambling, treating investment with a gamified approach of day trading. So it's an interesting time for this book because you're focused on these long-term fundamentals. But I feel like if people just heard investment value creation on gaming, they might think about, almost the opposite, right? So how do you does that resonate with you that
Oh yeah,
you
absolutely.
see some of
I mean,
that?
Paul and I have had tons of conversations of the title of the book. Like, look, we don't want it to be a gaming book. How do we talk about like if gamification didn't come up as a word or a phrase, then we wouldn't have this problem or this dilemma. But
Yep.
unfortunately, marketers kind of screwed that one up by creating these little
Big
mouse
time.
and cheese mazes, and didn't really put the effort of what gamification would have been about, which is how do you develop the relationship with your customer? How do you know them better? But I also understand the dilemma. If you think about the flip side of the coin, I mean, how much effort does it take to build a game? Then you can truly measure that kind of rich level of engagement. How long does it take to create a show or develop a series of content creation? That takes time, and it does require more effort than probably a lot of companies want to get into or a lot of people want to do. They want to get the quick hit. But every generation, young from many centuries old, have always wanted to go faster than the previous generation. Then they got wiser and older, or just simply circumstances create a situation where you hit you get hit by the realization that you need to invest the time into working out or reading or spending some time with friends or learning that new skill or going to get that new career, whatever the case may be. And kind of jumping a little, borrowing a little bit from the book, one of the cornerstones is, and maybe we'll get to it, but one of the cornerstones is when experience has been built, especially in B2B, you see them being done in layers as opposed to actual instead of actually creating a complete experience, they're built on these different layers. And so even today, a lot of businesses, startups, and even innovation, like larger enterprises who are trying to take on new, really cool opportunities or want to be innovative within their own organizations, they'll do it layer by layer. But a person doesn't want to just fall off the cliff with their experience. If I buy something from you and then your service experience is terrible or non-existent, then guess what? It doesn't matter how great your product is, right? Or if I'm not part of something bigger, I'm not going to see the premium value that you're delivering to it. And so those types of sort of that sliver of creating a full, level of experience is a similar kind of theme to what you're saying, Todd.
From an early read that I remember, it was a while ago, but I was blessed to get an early copy. And you really do work backwards from the consumer experience, like fundamentally, I believe, which great consumer products do, and video games certainly do. And to your point, if they're building layers, it starts with that as the North Star and just trying to make sure they're always preserving that. So I think that was a key insight of bringing that from games to B2B.
So that kind of leads to, well, I don't know if it leads to it, but there's these sort of a two-edged question. So if you look at the, let's say one of the archetypes of customer experience is probably that actually can show direct impact head to head on the spot, just about on the spot anyway, to revenue. It was one that I used to use in all my early books, which was American Girl stores, right? I think about them for a minute. I mean, I really, I just heard them come up again on some sports thing I was watching. I think it was a Knicks game, one of the Knicks games. One of the announcers raised it, and you think about what you did. You go online, you buy a doll, you look at dolls. The dolls have a story, a full story built around them. There's a million accessories that support the story. Then you go to the store. You can have tea with the doll. You can have, and it might be the doll that you haven't bought yet, but you're planning on buying or want to buy. You can watch theater, which is based on dolls' histories, with the doll. Now, the doll doesn't drink, and the doll certainly has no clue what's going on the stage. But dad walks out $400 poor, or mom, right? Every time. And the kid is eyes are sparkling. It's like Disney, really. It's like that same kind of feeling. And ultimately, if you're looking at customer experience or experience at all, it's an impact on behavior and feeling, right? That you're talking about. My old definition, I remember customer experience is how a customer feels about a company over time, right? It was, and that was sort of simplistic, but it was in the right ballpark. All right. So you're talking about creating value, and a portion of that is hardcore revenue, right? Money comes of it. But then you have the things like, if you remember, what was his name before he was utterly disgraced at Georgia State? C.K. Prahlad's thing on customer engagement value, which, regardless of his clinical criminality, he was right about it nonetheless. And he's basically saying we're really talking about a value that you can measure of impact on something, indirectly and directly. Now, can you take that piece, because that's where engagement value comes, as opposed to customer lifetime value, which is only a piece of it, right? Can you take that and apply it in the context of the multiplayer mode?
Yeah, so this is the B2B dilemma, right? Because I think one of the things, as you were talking about, Paul, like a lot of B2B companies, or both of you, Todd and Paul, right? I mean, they don't quite fully understand this because the numbers aren't there. Right. How many units, let's just say, for the lack of let's just make this a cold, kind of a term, but let's just say a customer or a contract is a unit. How many units do consumer-based companies sell, right? The investment for them to, tune a little part of their experience goes an incredibly long way in terms of bottom line, especially given that margins are a little more razor thin. In B2B, it becomes, I'll come back to this to answer your question.
Take your time.
That becomes one of the challenges for B2B is the margins are much wider, the sales cycles are longer, and there are fewer, types of opportunities to go engage in. So it pretty much gets bowled into, let's get our foot in the door, and then our salespeople will take the rest, right? That's maybe, let's say 60%. I'm being very maybe generous, but 60% of the companies out there that are in B2B, that's what they do. So when you're trying to evaluate customer experience as a sort of a revenue number, like how much money did you make, right? The best, and of course it takes a little bit of time to do this. There are different formulas and there are different ways, and there's some proprietary scores and scoring or kind of evaluations and models that I use. But the cornerstone, a lot of the opportunities that are sort of the low hanging fruit, is how many people come back, how many people make a referral. Because if they really feel good about that, and you'll see companies who double down on that, literally either their salespeople will say, look, I was calling a customer and they just loved everything I did, we did, what do we do next? I'm like, well, you just go ask them, do you know anybody else that could benefit from this? And it sounds so blatant, but quite frankly, you just invested all that time in getting a customer to become an advocate. Why not go ahead and perpetuate that?
Amen.
Create some perpetual motion on that.
A friggin' man.
So those two elements of return, right? Either coming back for more, or being able to deliver, sort of extra value or advocacy, or even deals by referrals or whatever other mechanisms that B2B uses, is probably the better measure of how that experience is going. Because there is a time frame that has to be a little more patient and it takes a little longer in B2B to do than other places. but it is a very solid, value that, look, you did something good somewhere along this line in terms of this experience, and they're going to go and want to do something more for you. Either they feel you are, they are getting an incredible value from your services, or they know someone else that they want to become a hero and share that with someone else, right? Whether
I
it's
love
another
that.
colleague, their boss, some, other client. Those are the best mechanisms. And I swear it's so funny that what's old is new again, but word of mouth cannot be, understated about something.
So,
So
Anand, I've got a comment and a question. So just to drill into this, because I like it. Number one, going back to games, I mean, retention is our key metric, right? So Todd downloads a video game today. In many cases, it might be a free game, so I don't even have any skin in the game. Like, I had to pay $60. So it's very free and easy to install. It's also very free and easy to uninstall and make room for the next game. So the magic metric for most of us in the games as a service business is retention. And similar to an app, we're looking at day 1 and day 7 and day 30, and we measure it a lot of different ways. And that is a very powerful metric. When it comes to word of mouth, or that idea, what we always used in the game industry, and I'm going to just ask you guys, both of you, whether there's a better measure or not, because I'm going to learn something today, or I'm going to confirm what I already know. The just general net promoter score of how likely would you be. Okay, Paul's already shaking. I knew I would learn something today with you guys. So that is what we generally ask. So my question is, what is a better, just as easy, what is a better single question scale and question that we should be asking in the game industry, or maybe it's the same in the B2B industry? What do you guys think?
Anand, you want to start and I'll pick it up?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. I mean, I think that net promoter score can be a good measure, but it has to be taken with an appropriate level of context. Someone can easily answer a one question thing and say, yeah, I like it, right? But there's a bias, an inherent bias that doesn't require any other further commitment, which is, I put this, I answer this question, or I, check that, I'm at the POS system and I put 5 stars or whatever. That's great, but it doesn't really tell you whether there's a likelihood they're going to come back, or there's a likelihood that they're going to refer, right? And so that there's a big problem with it. Now, if you're doing it's one of those types of measures where if you're not getting good net promoter scores, there's something to be done. If you're getting really good net promoter scores, you're not still waiting to pat yourself on the back and hope and then be done.
You might have a false positive, but if you have a negative, there's something
positives.
wrong.
I hate to say it, but
no, I take with the
positive
grain.
Net promoter scores always means that you've got more work to do to truly understand what's going on. And I know it sounds kind of glass half empty, but it really, really does make a big difference. But it's the actual, hey, who would you? Right, the question also matters, right? I remember that.
Would you recommend this to someone?
Who would you recommend this to, or how many other people, or something? Right. And Paul probably has some better, more professional.
Well, I actually have dated. It says that's a piece of garbage question.
So, is there a better question, Paul? So,
it's actually here's the actual thing. Remember the guy?
Would you refer it, and then you 0 to 10? But
oddly, that same guy was telling about Prahalad, right? He did a survey long before he did. His book on customer engagement value. And he was unaware of what he was actually uncovering in the survey, but he asked, let's see, it was 10,000 financial services professionals. And I think it was 7,000, or it was a lot of some similar number, but a little less communications, like telephone company people. The following questions, 4 questions. The first question was NPS, right? Would you recommend this company to someone you know? But the kicker was question 2, and it's the one NPS does not take into account, is did you recommend it to someone you know? Not would you, did you? And then third question was, did they become a customer? And the fourth question was, and only the company could answer that part. And the fourth question was, were they a profitable customer? But it was the second question that was the key. It's why it just NPS stops at the first question. And so to Anand's point, anyone can say yes to anything, right? Just there's no, it's, the key is, oh, well, there's skin in the game because it's someone you know and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's also completely disconnected because it's a thing on a piece of digital paper, right? And nobody's really caring one way or the other about you. They're just caring about the total results of the answers. And the did answer was out of 100% of the ones who said, would you? Yes. I think 33 did, right? Meaning 67 didn't. So 6%. So it's question 2 that's far more important than question 1, right? You need question 1 to get to question 2, but NPS stops at question 1. And yeah, there are all kinds of interesting nuances in there, but the net is it ignores question 2. Right. It's really
I
not
have more
part
questions, but I want to get to other non-book
Right.
lessons. But that's fascinating. So cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the final quick comment about that too, because you're asking on behalf of a lot of people, including yourself, right? The way to best measure, I mean, in gaming, it's a lot. I don't want to say it's easier, but it is definitely, there are more mechanisms and an audience who is more likely to answer question 2 more honestly. Probably answer question 1 more honestly, right?
Yes, we
but
have
they're
no
all-
problem with inflated number 1 in the
Right.
game industry. No problem at all.
But if you could get them to take an action, right, or identify something
Yes.
that they're going to do next or will do next, and it's specific, then that's much better than an NPS score. And and you can still potentially do that nowadays in the internet age even with gaming, but that's the cornerstone. Is that you got to find out. In B2B, it's more important that they're able to identify somebody or something or whatnot. So here's a quick experimental thing. What they did, I'll just get to the bottom line. What they did was they said, if you liked our service, then donate to this cause. So it's $100 product. I'm just making up the numbers just to obfuscate everything. $100 product, give $5 to this cause. So if they were willing to give $5 to a cause because they liked your service, that even though that's not new business or new opportunity, that's way better. I mean, they took some sort of action and they gave up more because they valued your service offering 5% more at least than they did before.
And in gaming, what we typically do, by the way, is if you like this game, here is a link. You can send it to Anand, use code Todd, and Todd's going to get something in the game, and you'll get something in the game. And
if you
it's
take
kind of that viral loop.
Todd, if you take that measurable action, tie it also, though, I wouldn't diminish retention in the slightest with that. It's equal level, right? I mean, I know, again, Diablo 4 current season thing, highest retention of all 13 seasons they've had so far by a long shot, right? But they're making the point, right? So, but retention in combination with measurable action, then you got something.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got something.
Yeah. I like it.
So we have time, Anand, we have time for like one last thing to ask you. So what games are you playing?
Oh,
or do you play? You don't have to be
I'm
playing
playing
right
the
now.
stock market simulator. No, I'm just kidding.
Wall Street Raider. Do you play it?
Yeah, that's right. No, it's actually a game.
He lives it.
Yeah, go to
Oh
it
my
on
God.
Steam. It's done by a Wall Street
geez.
guy. Actually.
I mean, I think we've gotten into, my son's getting older. So one of the beautiful things about, a gamer who has a son who, grows up, they love games, and it's kind of cool that they're dad. Yeah, so it's something for us to do. So we've been playing some older RTS games, Command and Conquer. We found, as a matter of fact, we found that even though it's an old game and there's much of it that has been, pretty much, what do you call it? Like they've kind of not shut it down, but they're not developing on it anymore. Yeah. Discontinued. There's huge communities of that game, right? From even the most basic initial version back in 1996 or 94 all the way to some of the more recent things. And there are people who are keeping it on their own dime alive. And now companies are starting to realize, oh, wait, you know what? Something, that would be fun from a, fishing and hunting and other, there's probably other things that are out there, but I'm starting to see not ads particularly, but references to, hey, did you know this company, offers something that's a little more on that military.
I'm with you on Command and
sort
Conquer.
of that battle things, or like Nerf, I think, is getting into like Command and Conquer communities right, to kind of perpetuate themselves. This is something that's like the cornerstone of Todd, what he does, right, is how do you engage that community as a non-gaming, organization as a result of it. So yeah, it's been mostly RTS stuff. He loves, like, there's there's some strategies, a lot of tactics, there's a lot of fun, a lot of quirks. Me personally, the last thing I played that I was really, really getting into, there's a new game, I'm a big Battlestar Galactica fan, and there's a new one called Deadlock that's come out. And so it's very, Todd, you'll probably know what the sort of the type of gaming it is, but it's like Pixel Starship type of a game, if anybody plays those mobile games. But, there's some storyline, and then you have some decisions to make, and then those decisions have ramifications, and then they included a few battles that are in there. So there's a little bit of everything for that game, and it's kind of cool, and I find myself very immersed in it, both as a fan, less as a fan, but actually more about how that gameplay evolves and how my actions take part, because you almost could never win. Like, the Cylons always get you, or at least I'm that bad or good. But it's how long you can survive and how much can you learn from the next one. So it's pretty clever. The replayability is very key to me about some of these games, and those are the ones that I've been kind of getting into. Yeah, I was in Diablo for a while, but I'm out. Like, I will end up finding myself at 6 a.m. and realize, oh wait, the whole night just went by, and that's not a good thing. So not all the time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being on today. And, needless to say, you'll be back on. And I do want to let everyone know that if you're interested, I normally say, how can we get your book? But I actually literally know how to do it.
You're the publisher,
right?
So
right. So
double click on Paul's
Anand,
face.
talk to me, whoever you like. Find us on LinkedIn. We'll make sure you get the book. It is available at PPN Publishing. Within the next 30 days, there'll be a site up as part of the overall PPN complete redo of the website, and there'll be a PPN Publishing page, and you'll be able to purchase it there. So thank you, Anand. Next month, Todd and I have, to continue this, the guy who's probably responsible for the entire story world of Halo, among other things, Jeff Gomez, will be speaking. And tomorrow I am launching my full version, my new show, Rated PG, at 11 a.m. Wednesday. So stay tuned for all the PPN shows. Anand, as always, you're a champ. Love you. And Todd, I guess ready to head out, huh?
Yeah, good to see you, Anand. Congrats on getting the book out there. Everybody, pick it up.
You're the best.
Absolutely.
The world needs it.
Look forward to more sessions with you guys. Take care.
Awesome.
See you later.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.